My name is George Boston Rhymes. This is kvci.blogspot.com. Last night, September the 21st, 2011, we all witnessed the execution of death row inmate Troy Davis in the state of Georgia for allegedly gunning down a police officer. Although 7 of the 9 witnesses recanted their statements, along with other questions, it is beyond doubt with any human being of average intelligence that there was an injustice done in this case. We also understand that, I think it was Troy Davis' sister asked him to turn himself in. And there was a local pastor that went to Atlanta, drove Troy Davis back. Yet, that pastor was never called in to testify, I was informed. Therefore, it seems to me America, the land of the free and the home of the brave, in 2011 professed to be a Christian nation, but on the other hand, when it is given the opportunity to prove itself along the lines of fairness and justice for those who live in a black house, there is still a double standard. Death row inmate Troy Davis did not just have the support from the black community, but white peoples and other people around the nation and the world, even London, European, felt the necessary to protest this death. It is beyond clear that he was not proven guilty beyond a shadow of a doubt. And so this is clip 1 of a new movement to highlight America's unjust justice department, unjust justice system. Just 2 days ago, God had it ordained for me to witness 2 young men around 23 to 25 years of age in state court here in Valdosta, Georgia, convicted, one convicted of obstructing a police officer or a Lowndes County deputy, and for not allowing the police officer to come into his house or his apartment within 7 minutes. The case hung on 2 aspects from my observation. One, that he obstructed a police officer, and the next, that he would fail to let the police officer in. I would have you that this young man, when he called the 911, he had nothing to do with the reason for him calling 911. He simply saw a lady being kicked and beat up, and he called 911. Later found himself the victim as the police came and knocked on his door. And according to the mother, he was the only person that were arrested and charged with other violations, but reduced for whatever reasons. I understand that he went in the courtroom 8 times and finally state court. Attorney Shelton, I believe his name, I watched him as he prosecuted what I perceived to be an innocent man. The jury among his peers, well, not really of his peers, because there were 6 members on the jury, 5 of which was white, And I'm sure the black person was, like most blacks in this town, scared as hell. I understand that the other jury was the same way. 5 whites and 1 black, and I'm sure that black was scared as hell. Just like most blacks in Valdosta, Lowndes County, Brooks County, and throughout the South in general, because their parents told them about an unjust justice system. We got no justice in the death of Willie James Williams here in Valdosta, Lowndes County, Georgia. We have Earl Evans that was burned up in a police car in over in Brooks County in the city of Quitman. The Wootons, who was drowned in a pond, they tell me that all of them could swim. And so we have a long line of people that have been executed in one form or another. In September of 1998, inmate Willie James Williams died in the Valdosta and Lowndes County Jail. At that time, we had only 3 deaths in that jail. But since the death of Willie James Williams in September of 98, we have had approximately 30 deaths from 1994 to 2009. And now we are told that the Sheriff Department is not subject to the Open Records Act. And so the people of Valdosta, Lowndes County, and South Georgia, and the state of Georgia in general don't know exactly how many people have died in the Valdosta and Lowndes County jail for whatever reasons, yet nobody will say anything about it. You don't find that published in the newspapers. You don't find our elected officials and politicians talking about that in the news. It is as if, though, this desire for power, this desire to hold on to power during the last days of the reign of the wicked, because God of my ancestors will bring in a new world order, not the world order that many people talk about and pray for behind closed doors. So I'm here to say this is clip 1, but clip 2 of exposing and highlighting the unjust, America's unjust justice system. Death row inmate Troy Davis could have been one of the best things that could ever happen to America, because I believe it is arousing the consciousness of this nation, if it still has one. Valdosta Daily Times highlights Georgia executes Troy Davis. Front page coverage. But when a congressional aide, Michael F. Bryant, had a gun pulled on him over in Quitman in the county of Brooks, took 16 days for our only newspaper, the Valdosta Daily Times, to publish the story. Google it on the internet and see if WALB, CBS, ABC, and other newspapers in the state of Georgia reported the story. This young man, his wife, and another passenger in the car was only going to have dinner after a Sunday morning worship service and found himself staring down the barrel of a gun. Yet in the mass media across America, this most serious incident has been a lockout or a blackout or a whiteout. But I challenge you to ask your pastor, why can't he stand up? Ask your imam in Islam. Ask your fellow Jews in Judaism. Ask them, why can't they stand up and be a reflection of the worthies they proclaim to follow? Now, I'm here in conclusion. Allow me to state this in my conclusion. This death just may serve to show the world how the ancient Hebrew Israelites that nobody want to talk about, of the darker hue, will eventually be respected, not only in America but around the world, because it's a new day emerging, whether you believe it or not. There is something about the God of my ancestors. There's something about right. There is something about holiness. There is something about the real church of Jesus Christ. If there is a Jesus Christ, if there is a Muhammad, if there ever was a Buddha, or a theology of these great men, Jesus said, and ye shall know the truth, and that the truth shall set and make you free. And so I want to say to you in closing, this is clip 1 of the Troy Davis segment, but it is take 2 dealing with an unjust Georgia justice system. And I am 100% sure that if there is a Jesus that ever lived and died and was resurrected on the 3rd day, then the truth must be told and all lies and injustice exposed. Or there can be no need of you going to church every Sunday and hollering hallelujah or hallelujah, while the righteous receive no right nor righteousness here in South Georgia, the state of Georgia in general, and around this universal plain. Somewhere I heard that evil may reign for a while, but in the morning righteousness shall emerge. So I'm going to leave you now. But I want to close with those 2 young men prosecuted by the law, found guilty in state court in Valdosta, Georgia. And I wish you had been there. I wish the pastors would go and sit down in state court and see why our young black boys are entered into jails and prisons. It's not that they are criminals, it's because they don't have the money to hire an attorney. And many of these public defendants ain't worth 3 cents. I repeat, they're not worth 3 cents. And so they put them in a chain of a circle, of a rolling rock, where they can never get a loose. They put him on probation. The young man, his mom owned a business, and because of the type sentence he got, he can't even work in his own family business and do what he was doing to help his family out. So that means that the system is forcing them back into crime, forcing them to rob a convenience store, forcing them to break and burglarize somebody's house, forcing them back into the penal institution where somebody is benefiting from the young black boys and poor white people who cannot afford a good attorney to get justice in an unjust justice system, and in too many cases where the jury is not being picked fairly, in my most humble opinion. And I do believe if you go to court, you will be able to prove that and justify that for yourselves, and you won't need me to help you in that process. So I want you to know that I'm not angry. I raise my voice because that's the flavor of my nature. But I also want you to realize, as Al Sharpton said last night before the execution or murder of an innocent man, I believe, and if 7 of the 9 jurors recanted their statements, if the pastor that drove him from Atlanta back to his hometown was never called to testify, that alone should be enough for reasonable doubt. Not to mention, they say that some of the people on the appellate, on the court, on the pardon and parole, were ex-police officers. If that was the case, wasn't that enough alone to justify looking into the case a little further? Or has it become that we don't care nothing about human life until it's dealing with somebody in Iraq, or somebody in the rich Arab world nation, or until it's somebody dealing with the diamonds that are being stolen and taken from the continent of Africa? And by the way, Africa is not the name of Africa. Africa is a name given to that continent and people following a white general. So we have been duped. We have been duped today. We go and we fight in the armed forces, talk about freedom, justice, and equality for all men, only to return home to be treated as my grandmama told me about in the days of old. There is no justice for the black man. There is no justice for the white poor man who cannot afford one of these expensive lawyers, or who are in the cliques and slicks among the assistant district attorney or the DA or the judges or the right lawyers. And so we suffer. Most of us don't even realize that we are not receiving justice. It's all about a game. So our black boys, young black boys, are filling the prison, filling the jails, filling probation, doing community work. All because they are poor, unemployed, and have probation fines that they cannot find the money to pay, and so they go out and do things stupid. You take a man and you put him on probation, and then while you got him in the penal system, going to jail, going to court, he lose the job that he has. Then when he get out, you charge him $600 fine to pay it every month. He don't have the money because he can't find the job. He just lost the job that he had. No court judge consider that. No justice system consider that when they call these boys into court. So they lose their jobs in these hard economic times. And then we look at our young boys just because they got their pants down. Hell, some of y'all minds are down, lower than their pants. And we sit back and we play this unending game, calling them criminals. They are not criminals, they are victims. They are victims of an unjust monopoly game where they don't have what others have. If you don't own some land, you can't put no restaurants on the land, and you don't have any money. So we are caught in an unending, destructive monopoly game of which we cannot compete. We can't compete with the power structures that be not on an equal playing field. They own all the businesses downtown. They own all the banks. They own all the credit unions. They own the boards of position. Even the city council, they are being controlled. You get a black-owned city council, y'all excuse me, most of them that I've seen are so scared they can't stand up straight. So there's something wrong in our world. I put 20 years in this United States Armed Forces, and I put my life on the line for the freedom and the rights of others in foreign lands. And now it's time. And if I could fight like hell for those in foreign lands, why can't I come home and fight for those in my own homeland? American people had better wake up. We are going to lose this republic. Troy Davis, inmate, death row Troy inmate. My beautiful brother. And all them like him. He's not the only one, and I'm sure he will not be the last. But as I said before, God has always used the black Hebrew Israelites to set the standard, to bring us out of an evil world into a better world. Dr. King had a dream, and he died. He was murdered just for having a dream. Malcolm X, man with a vision for his people, I believe was murdered by hands of an unseen man in the red, white, and blue. Yes, it's a new day. Our eyes are opening up, and there is a new reality. The question is, where will you fit in that new reality? kvci.blogspot.com. Brother George Boston Rhymes. I was in the military, a man that committed the memory that I am an American fighting man, prepared to give my life in the defense of my country. I will accept no favors from the enemy. And I went on down that line. And if I can fight like hell in foreign countries for foreigners that I did not know, then why can't we stand up and fight for the people in our own house, in our own community, in our own city, county, state, nation, and world? kvci.blogspot.com. I do what I do because I truly, truly love you.